Hello and welcome back. You have journeyed with me a little bit now through the exploration of downward dog. So hopefully by now you have takeaways of different options or modifications you can make to your downward dog. You have different actions that you can focus on. For example, actions of the shoulders. You have actions of the hips and the pelvis region. You also have actions of the legs that you can use to fire up your practice of downward facing dog. So this session and the final to this series is focused on your efforts. So the efforts that you've made to arrive here. And an effort always needs to be rewarded. So this practice is taking you through the effort of downward dog, and then we're counteracting or counterposing each of the downward dogs that we practice with a pose that allows you to integrate where you've just been with that practice. So, deservedly so, find yourself a position that's comfortable for you where we can check in with your breath and help you settle into the arrival of this practice. So if you'd like to be seated, ensure that you have a blanket or something to elevate your hips so that the hips are slightly higher than the knees or at least level. If you're more comfortable to begin your practice laying down, then take that option. But wherever you choose to arrive, ensure that you're honouring yourself and how you feel right here and now. When you arrive in this place, and only if you feel comfortable to, the invitation is there to either soften your gaze or close down your eyes. And then just take a few moments to notice where your breath's at, to notice how it feels, to notice the depth of your breath. Feeling can also be a prompt to notice the texture of your breath. Using your senses, you might notice the sound of your breath. The smell of your breath. As in how your breath responds to the environment, the air around you. And really we're just using the breath to settle yourself into your body, to draw your attention inwards and your awareness inwards, so that you can really take the time to notice how you're arriving to this practice. To take the time to connect with yourself, for yourself, for this practice. Which I hope is a delicious reward to where you've been and to where you have arrived. Notice all the qualities of your breaths for perhaps another 4 to 5 cycles of breath. as you're now perhaps familiar with, use this opportunity before we move into the movement element of our practice to set yourself an intention. When I started delving into this practice, as I've probably told you before, downward dog was not a comfortable pose for me. It was a very challenging pose, and I could have opted out there and then. It's a pose that challenged me just as much mentally as it did physically. And through lots and lots of persistence, I have come to find this pose quite comfortable now to hang out in. And it also, I guess the longer that I've been evolving my practice, I've realized that it gives me a whole different perspective on how I view things. And that's potentially because my head is lower than my heart and I'm viewing things from upside down. So with your attention in mind, if you have your eyes closed down, gently open your eyes. If you are laying down, and also if you're seated, let's all move now to a familiar tabletop position. Blocks can be at the top of the mats on the lowest level, just in case you decide you want to access them. Otherwise, we're positioning our knees below our hips and our hands slightly in front of the line of the shoulders. And our focus for this downward dog is on our hands. So if you take your memory back to where I spoke about the hands as being this kind of plugging the pads of the fingers and the inner knuckles down into the mat. This is the action that we're focusing on for this particular downward facing dog. So let's quickly limber up the spine with a big breath in, draw the belly down towards the mat while you're gripping the mat and plugging the pads and the knuckles of the fingers in. Take a breath out and push down through that energy that you're creating in the hands to round through your spine. Breathe in, belly moves forward, heart space open, shoulders draw back. And with a big breath out, keep your attention focused on the energy in the hands. 3 more with your breath. Remembering as you breathe in, the front body opens, and as you breathe out, the back body opens. All the while, listening to your body and responding accordingly. Know that when we move into downward dog, that you have the option to always meet yourself where you need. So if it is that you need to come out and rest the arms or rest the legs, then listen to the body, come down to a position that feels restorative to you, and then just pick up where you left off whenever you feel ready. With your spine in a neutral position now, tuck the toes under so that you're pressing into the balls of your feet. With your hands energetically engaged, you're going to press down into the hands and the balls of the feet equally. Keep pressing the hands as though you're moving them forward up the mat, and shift your chest and weight back towards the thighs. Now remember, this is our first downward facing dog of practice. So if you feel to, you might like to alternatively pedal out the legs. And by that I mean press your right heel down towards the mat. So you're extending through your right leg and bending through your left. And then we'll swap that over. So bend through the right knee as you extend and press out through the left heel. All the while you're just finding a breath that supports you.
Notice just how by clawing the mat with your hands, that the energy travels all the way up the arms to the shoulders. And again, you might like to just create some small movement in the shoulders. Opening of the shoulder blades, pressing the shoulder blades together. We're taking 2 more breaths here. If you're still with me, you're doing great. If you're elsewhere, you're still doing great. You've responded to your body. Last breath here. Slowly lower down to the knees. Shuffle your legs to one side and your hips to the other, so that you come down to lay on your back. The first pose that we're moving into to integrate that practice or to restore ourselves is a pose called Apanasana. So it's knees toward chest pose. So start by ensuring that your shoulders are comfortable, the back of your hips are comfortable. We've just done a lot of work in the wrists, so allow the wrists to take circles, clench them tight, fisted, open the hands, shake them out, whatever it is you need to do to re-energize your wrists. And then gently draw the knees in towards the chest. You're going to lightly cup your knees. Again, you can soften your gaze or close down your eyes here. Bring your attention down to the back of your hips. And just allow yourself a moment to feel the heaviness. Feel the indentation that the back of the hips might be imprinting on the mat below you. And then on your next inhale, have a feeling of your hips being really heavy in the mat. Feeling that grounding connection, and then as you breathe out, follow the path of the breath all the way up and out. Fill your body with breath. Fill more, fill to capacity comfortably. Feel the heaviness in the back of your hips. And then as you exhale, follow the path of the breath up and out. Take a breath in. Feel the heaviness of the hips settling into the earth below you. And then exhale, following the breath up and out. Ensure that your hands are comfortable, your knees are comfortable, your breath is comfortable. If you feel to add some gentle movement to the hips or to the legs, move in whatever way that you're drawn to do so. Just take a few moments to feel the residual of your first downward facing dog. Take another 3 rounds of breath here. gently release the feet down to the floor, roll off to one side, and just support yourself here in this position for a moment before we move into our next downward facing dog. Use your hands, the strength of your arms to support you all the way back up. Find your way once again to tabletop position. This time we're shifting our attention down to our feet. So tuck the toes under. Press down into the balls of the feet and then shift the hips up towards the ceiling as you're shifting the weight of your chest back towards the thighs. And then slowly start to press your heels down to or towards the mat. Again, you want to think about your feet or the outer edges of your feet. So as you're eyeballing them now underneath your body, think about the outer edges of your feet parallel with the edges of your mat. So there's this slight kicking out of your heels, which creates an internal rotation in the legs. Lots of prompts here I can add to support you, so you could play around with lifting the toes off the mat so you feel the big toe and little toe mound pressing into the mat, and then you can soften them. You could step your feet a little wider, see if that makes any difference to the way you notice the pose. You can soften the knees. You can press down into the balls of the feet and lift the heels. Really just use this moment to play around with different positioning of the feet, different actions of the feet. And hopefully this is enough to distract your attention away from your hands and arms and the work that they're doing too, but perhaps not now that I've mentioned it. So in this position, take a few more breaths here. Remembering that if at all you need to come out and rest, we'll be here, we're not going anywhere. It's no sign of weakness. In fact, it's a sign that you're just able to listen to your body and respond appropriately. Take another 2 breaths here. Slowly lower to your knees. Bring your big toes together, moving into integration practice number 2, Balasana or child's pose. So with the big toes together, the knees wide apart, press or settle the hips back towards the heels. Stack the arms, one on top of the other, rest the forehead. Again, there's so many different options here to play around with. If you find that you have knee issues, then you can always take some sort of prop, place it on the back of the heels, and then let the body weight rest forward. And again, there's plenty of options for the upper body here. You might like to let the head rest towards the mat, the arms rest down alongside your body. Play around and take as long as you need to find a position that supports you and allows you the opportunity, again, to integrate the second practice of downward dog. back to your breath. And just notice the movement of your breath. Notice the sounds of your breath. Notice the quality of your breath. Notice the support that your breath provides you. That sense of calm, that sense of being supported. That sense of anchoring your attention to something, to a tool that you have available to you all the time. Take another 4 to 5 cycles of breath here. The end of your next cycle of breath, come back to a comfortable seated position before we move into our next downward dog, just for a very quick anatomy lesson. So for the focus with our next downward facing dog, we're drawing our attention back to our pelvis, predominantly the pubic bone. These two bony prominences, the sit bones, and the hips. So as we move into the next downward facing dog, we have this forward tilt of the pelvis, which is like this kind of exaggerated arch in the spine, or we have the backwards or posterior tilt of the pelvis, which creates this rounding in the spine. So just think about those actions as I move us into the next downward dog and prompt us around the hip region. Come to all fours, spread your fingers nice and wide, hands are in front of the line of your shoulders. Stack your knees below your hips, tuck your toes under, and then press back into downward facing dog number 3. Have that feeling of pressing your hands up and away from you. Have this feeling of equally pressing through the feet. So now the energy between the hands and the feet is looking to create some balance. All right. Follow your attention all the way up the length of your arms. Follow your attention all the way up the back of the legs, so that the highlight now is the hip region. And then have a feeling of pressing the pubic bone back and up. Notice how your body responds to that. Chances are you might feel a more intense feeling in the back of the thighs. You might feel some shoulders squeezing together. And now we're going to create the opposite action. So have a feeling of pressing or drawing the sit bones down slightly. And then that might create a little less tension in the back of the legs, a little more opening through the shoulder blades. Let's move through that a couple of times. So press the pubic bone up and back. Notice how your body reacts. And then slightly press the sit bones or tailbone down slightly. Move through that just gently and slowly. Doing whatever you need to do to your hands and feet to help support holding this pose just a little longer. Remember, if it's too much, come down, meet us back here, rest. You have lots of tools now to know a little bit on where to take your body. If you're still here, hold for 3 breaths. And then slowly lower all the way down. Again, let the feet drift out to one side. Come back to sit on your sits bones. And then we're taking it all the way back. So a twist is where we're going next. When you're settled back, extend your arms out at shoulder level. Take your feet nice and wide. I'm going to offer you a couple of options here. So first option is feet are nice and wide. Press the knees in towards one another and then gently let the legs together drop out towards the right hand side. And then if you're after a little more twist sensation in your spine, then look out towards your left fingertips. So just turn the head towards your left hand side. So this was option 1. If you're again after a little more intensity in that twist, then take your right ankle and place it over the outer left knee, and that would draw the left leg down towards the mat a little further. Turn your attention back inwards. Be aware of any new sensations that you're aware of now. And that might be both as a residual from the downward facing dog pose that you were just in. It might even just be something that you're aware of now in this twist form. Take another 3 rounds of breath. If you have the left leg hooked down with your right ankle, then remove the ankle. At the end of your exhale, return the legs back to center. We're just going to pause in the middle for a moment. So the feet are still wide, the knees are pressed together, and just take a moment to notice any differences you're aware of from side to side. We've only moved into the twist on one side. Is it that you feel a little bit more length in one side of the body? a little bit more softness in one side of the body, a little more ease. And then we're gently going to move to the opposite side. So now let the legs together drop out towards the left-hand side. Set up your option. By shifting the head, by weighting down the right leg, and then turning your attention back towards your breath. Take another 3 cycles of breath here. Unhook the leg if the leg's hooked down. At the end of your exhale, move your knees back into that neutral position, feet wide, knees tucked together. And again, bring your awareness back to your body. Do you feel more balanced? What is it that you notice now? Heel toe or draw your feet together, roll off to one side. Give yourself some time. As we move into the practice of our last downward facing dog for this tutorial anyway. Use your hand to support you all the way back up again. Let's meet in that familiar tabletop position. Your hands are in front of your shoulder line, your knees are stacked or positioned below your hips. This variation is a playful invitation. So when you're ready, with your toes tucked under, press back to downward facing dog. And this option here is for you to play with. So your attention could be on your hands. You might change the positioning of your hands so they're slightly dialed out. Notice, does that make any difference to the sensation in your shoulders? You could play around with pressing the knuckles and the pads into the mat, watching or observing the energy travel and move up towards your shoulders. You could tilt your hips forwards and backwards, and again find that sweet spot for you, somewhere in between. You could play by taking your feet a little wider. or bringing them closer so that they're touching. You could play and explore by bending your knees. You could get really playful and just pedal out the legs. You can take a break whenever you're ready. You could notice your perspective and how things look when the body is upside down. You could say to yourself, my breath supports me. So many options. If you're still with me, great. If you're not, just as good. Take 3 more cycles of breath here. Making any adjustments to your body that support you for those last 3 breaths so that your attention is totally in this pose. And then with an out breath, slowly lower all the way back down. I'm taking you into the second last restorative pose of this practice. So it will be really handy to have a wall here. I'm going to demonstrate where we're going with this. It can be tricky to come into. So once you're at your wall, you're just going to sit side onto the wall, and then you'll lower into this like fetal type position, and then you'll swing your legs up towards the wall. Viparita, Karani, or legs up the wall pose. And I particularly love this pose personally. I can really feel the energy in my legs as everything drains back down towards my hips. Some people like a weight on their feet. Others don't. Some people also like some sort of padding or prop underneath the hips, just to elevate the hips a little bit. So you can always play around with that at a later date. Otherwise, just make any adjustments to your body. And bring your attention back now to that grounding breath. So as you breathe in, feel a heaviness in the back of the hips. There's a real deep connection to the earth below you. And then as you breathe out, follow the path of the breath as it moves up and out. Breathe in, fill your body with breath, fill some more, fill to capacity, and then exhale. Let go and release. Just breathe. Just allow yourself to feel the residual of all those downward dogs that you've practiced. as we move into the yogic rest component of this last session, you might like to stay here with your legs up the wall. If that feels like it's not supporting you, then you can always lower the legs and set yourself up in Shavasana so that your body is lying in a supine position. So on your back, front of the body up towards the ceiling, arms extended out alongside you, legs a little bit apart and the feet just relaxed out to the side. Wherever you choose to arrive, acknowledge the effort and the energy. Acknowledge your persistence, your patience to arrive right at this point now. Acknowledge your breath as being a guide and a support. Be grateful for this space that you've set up for yourself to return to. And let yourself remain anchored, connected, and present in this moment. Thank you so much for joining me. Please take as long as you need to here to allow that integration to take place. If this has inspired you to want to dive deeper, Yoga on the Road offers a 16-week self-paced course that will allow you to hone your home practice. So you will find all the details below here. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to Yoga on the Road. I upload weekly on a Tuesday, lots and lots of new material and practices. So I thank you with deep gratitude for being here with me. I'm Anita from Yoga on the Road. Namaste.